Hello ladies and gentlemen, Kane here from Ravencroft Guitars, and welcome to another build. I am super excited about this one, because this is going to be, for the first time in a while, a build that's just for me. I haven't built myself a guitar in 10 years. I built myself my first guitar 10 years ago, then I took like a 6-year break, so I've only really been doing it in earnest for about 2 and a bit years. So I figured, why not? Let's make ourselves something nice, something pretty. And I'm thinking this guitar is going to be very, very pretty. For this one, what I've got planned is the body shape is loosely inspired by Nebula from Ben Crow. I love that body shape, and I'm just tweaking it a little bit, make it my own, give it a little bit harsher edges here and there. The body is going to be Wenge. It's going to be this beautiful piece of Wenge here with a spalted maple top. This spalted maple top, I think is going to look fantastic. The neck is some black walnut. I've currently got it clamped up, so I won't show you. A black walnut, and then I've got this awesome Zero-Cote fretboard that I'm going to be using as well. You may hear a slight audio difference in this intro. My garage door is closed because it's winter here in Canada, and it's cold. It's really cold. I have a heater in my garage that I'm going to get installed here fairly soon, so I'll be able to work hopefully more consistently than I have in the past. But for the first little while here, you can see my breath in my garage, so it's pretty chilly. So the first little bit, things might be a little bit spread out. I'm hoping to make this a little bit longer of a series, just because I haven't done a long form series since my first GGBO entry, and with this one I'm pushing myself to try some new things. I'm going to do some new inlay techniques that I haven't tried before. I'm going to just kind of really slow down and make sure that I'm really perfecting my craft with this one. Because once I'm done this, I'm hoping that I can start opening commissions and start hopefully making at least enough money to fund the next build. Because as of right now, I haven't sold any guitars. They all get given away or given to charity. So that's pretty much the plan. Because I'm going to be working in my garage with the garage door closed, I'll probably do voiceover in terms of explanation, just because the audio in here is not great. It's a big square empty room. But yeah, without further ado, let's get going.
Alright, so I decided for the Supercut that I would do a little bit of a voiceover, give you guys some commentary on some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes, and yeah. So here you can see I'm just cutting the Wenge to size. It started off in this big long block. The rest of it, I still have. Some of it got used for some Christmas presents to make some cutting boards for my brother and sister. But yeah, here I'm cutting the black walnut to length for the neck. I love black walnut. It's a great wood to work with. It also just looks beautiful by the time it's all said and done. If you can get your hands on some, highly recommend using it for any of your builds. One of the things that this whole build kind of taught me is that someday I'm going to need to get a better bandsaw. It did fine with the black walnut here, but when I was trying to cut out the body with the Wenge, it was rough. It would also just be nice to have one that's tall enough that I can do the neck break angle all at once, rather than, well, I can do it now, but that's because I had to do some aftermarket modifications to the guard to make it raise up high enough for me. And things like that happen where it gets stuck. It drives me crazy, but it's all I got, so we make it work. All right, going over here where I route in the truss rod cavity. Using the Crimson straight leveling beam, whatever it's called, as my straight edge to make sure that everything goes in nice and level. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I haven't figured it out yet. I think for my next one, I might try doing this step before I cut out the neck, making sure that I have an outside edge that's nice and straight, and then doing something with that. But at the end of the day, as long as the job gets done, that's all that really matters. And double check my depth. Should be good. Ooh, new camera angles. Setting up my tripod on my workbench. So yeah, here I am cutting out my headstock brake angle. Like I said, I had to do some creative redesigning of the guard on my bandsaw to be able to do this. It's not great. It does get jammed up quite a bit because it's just not made to do this. I'm gonna get a new blade here for it after working with all that Wenge. It's pretty dull. And see if that helps, but someday I'm gonna need to get a bigger one. I'm also gonna need to get a shop that will fit a bigger one. You can also catch a little glimpse there of a body shape that I'm working on, a base for my my buddy with. And yes, clever joke about making a doorstop. Very original, Cade. Good job. Now just plating this flat using a Stanley number 4. I love my plane. I use it a lot. I'm still definitely figuring out best ways to use it. I'm not a Ben Crow just yet, but it's something that I'm working on so that I can actually use this effectively. My planing technique leaves a little bit to be desired, I know. Should probably clamp that thing better there too, there, Cade. Oh, yeah, now you got it. Good job, buddy. Yeah, just give up. Okay, gluing on our fretboard, like I said at the top, this is a Zerakote fretboard. I love Zerakote. I think it's just an absolutely stunning wood. This was before I got my garage heated, so the glue is a little bit cold, which did prove to give me some issues later on. When I was doing the neck glue up, the fretboard started to separate a little bit, which is unfortunate. I was able to catch it and wick in some warm glue and let it dry inside, so that helped. But yeah, just look at that figuring. Just absolutely beautiful. All right, now I'm measuring out my frets. I marked it all up with the crimson fret spacing ruler, again, whatever it's called. I mark it on both sides of the fretboard after I've cut it to length, and then just go by with my ruler just to straighten it across. In hindsight, I kind of wish I had done this as a fan fret, just because I don't own a fan fret, and that would have been cool. But alas, hindsight is 2020. Now I go through just with an X-Acto knife just to mark in those frets, just so that way, should the pencil line get erased somehow, either through sanding or just rubbing up against stuff, I'm not going to lose where my frets are. I don't go ahead and cut them right away. I think in the video I might do that in the next clip, but these aren't necessarily in the order in which I actually do my stuff. And yes, I'm cutting towards my thumb. I'm very, very intelligent. So this was an idea that I had for how to do something kind of interesting with the fret markers. So I took a offcut of some maple that I had and carved in these slots just with a chisel. Placed it in and then sawed off the edges. The nice thing being that because they go all the way to the edge, it does give me a side dot as well. In hindsight, I kind of wish that I hadn't done anything, that I had just let the Zero Cote speak for itself. However, I think this is something that I would do again on another fretboard down the line, just probably not with Zero Cote. Okay, moving over to the Wenge and getting the body shaped out. So this body was inspired by the Nebula from Crimson Guitars and from Ben Crow. But with some little alterations, made it a little bit sharper here and there, mostly on the upper end, just to kind of make it my own, and kind of fit my style a little bit more. I do really enjoy this body shape. It's really comfortable, and I think it's just deviated enough away from like a Les Paul that it's not mistakable as one. So using a white pencil crayon for this just because it shows up better than pencil. Wenge is real dark. There's some really cool lighter sapwood colors on the inside of this, but unfortunately none of it made it to the outside of the guitar. It's all just stuck inside. I was very proud of this shot. I don't know if anybody else was, but I was very proud of it. But you can see just how much my bandsaw is struggling with this, and I am not pushing hard at all. Very much letting the tool do the work. I think I cut it out before it jams up because it happened so many times that I was just getting frustrated after a while. I was also proud of this shot, but I was very worried that my camera was going to fall into the bandsaw, because my camera is my phone, and just strapped on with a fancy tripod grippy thing I got. So here what I did, because there was no way I was going to get that tight of a radius, and Wenge doesn't like to sand either. Another thing I learned from this whole thing is don't use Wenge for an entire body. Fretboards, sweet. Maybe even a neck. But for a body, man, this was a pain in the butt to use. So yeah, just putting in little access slots so that way I could chisel it out later. It worked better than trying to do it as a loop, but it still took forever and it gummed up a lot. Alright, now I started drilling some holes in just to give me a start on routing out the inside. I know that I had a couple people that were a little bit concerned about doing it this way for similar reasons that Ben Crow was worried about with his GGBO build, but having that thin, short grain at the lower bout. However, I did leave it fairly thick, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Plus, I have the top that helps solidify things, and I did leave quite a bit left in the back end. There's probably like a 1/4 inch there still. So I'm not going super deep, but again, with tools that really struggled, my drill press did not like this. I had to go extremely slow to get through this, and it was all day that I was working on getting these holes in. Some of the places I couldn't reach to get holes in just because of the way that it's shaped, but went in with a router and just kind of went around and leveled everything out. I did have to put on a piece of MDF just so I could get over the big gaps, because otherwise the router was falling in, and it just didn't work. You can get kind of a glimpse of some of the cool lighter colored, almost caramel-y colors on the inside. And I do wish that some of that had made its way to the back when I sanded, but alas, just didn't make it. So I wanted to do something cool for a sound hole on this, not because I thought about like the acoustic properties of it, but because I really wanted this to be something that was my own and different from anybody else's guitars, but kind of fit with the overall theme of a lot of my builds. If you haven't picked it up, I name all of my builds from Edgar Allan Poe works, and Annabell Lee is the name of one of his poems that I really enjoy. So I decided to go with a raven, so I spray adhesived it on. Spray adhesived? Adhesed? I don't know, whatever the term is. It's a good thing I'm an English teacher. But I adhered it, there we go, on, and then brought it over to my brand new scroll saw. Picked this up at an auction for $40, which is a pretty sweet steal, especially when you remember that they're Canadian dollars. But yeah, just went through and just took my time. This is very sped up, but just took my time and was careful with it. And this worked really well. I don't know if I would do this for like bigger, like for cutting out inlays and stuff like that. I would probably still use like a jeweler's saw and do it by hand. But this really was a fun way to kind of go about it. And from comments on social media, this is kind of the standout feature of the entire guitar. So I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm glad that it worked out well. And just to give it a little more texture and depth, I went in with a triangular file and just angled in some of the sharper corners in the design, making it almost look like it was like carved out by hand. Yeah, I thought it really added something. You can't really tell a lot in the video here, but when you're up close and looking at it, it gives it a cool kind of 3D effect, which I really enjoy. Then I grabbed a slightly larger file and did a little bit of the same on some of the flatter edges. It didn't work quite as well, but it helped kind of round everything over and make it nice and cohesive. And then just a little round file worked a little bit better for that shoulder of the bird and up near the head. Jumping over to carving the neck, I use the same faceting technique that Ben Crow preaches on all of his videos. Obviously, big influence on me, as he is for a lot of the people in the online guitar building community. Pretty much everything that I know about building guitars I learned from watching him and his videos. Some people it's Stu Mac, some people it's Ben Crow. For me, it's Ben Crow. But if you're new to this, basically what you do is you find your center, and then your quarters, I guess, on the sides, and then draw a series of facets from the sides as well, and then just connect your lines together. And what that does is that gives you the startings of a nice rounded shape, gives you a nice kind of C shape to D shape, depending on where you draw your facets. And then from there, you go in and sand and refine your shape as needed. Using a Shinto saw rasp here, probably my favorite tool in the shop. I love carving necks. If there was a way that I could just carve necks all day and not have to make bodies, I probably would. Even though I've done some kind of cool things with some of my bodies, I think at least. Carving neck is definitely my favorite. Now, I will let you guys in on a little bit of a secret. I almost messed this up really, really bad. Because I didn't want to cut the zero cote and end up losing some of the figuring. I left it a little bit thicker. However, I didn't account for that when I went to do my shaping of the neck and where exactly my truss rod cavity is. So on the back of the neck, there's a couple of spots up near the headstock, right around frets, probably 2, 3, 4. Where it is extremely thin. I can push with my thumb and I can feel it moving a little bit into the cavity where the truss rod is. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I'm not a gigging musician, so I'm not worried about that. I don't perform. I basically just play around my house. So I know that I can be gentle with it and it won't be a concern, but it almost went very, very badly, and I almost had to redo the neck, especially considering I didn't realize it until after the neck had been glued into the body. I was very upset. Things got thrown around because I was positive it was going to break. And I was upset. I threw things in my garage. I'm not proud of it, but I did. But yeah, make sure that you account for the thickness of your fretboard when you do this, and don't go with a thicker fretboard just because you like the wood. And if you do, go for a beefier neck, because you can't do it the same way you've always done it. There's a hole in your guitar. After I get some just rough shaping done, I like to come in just with an orbital sander, just to smooth it up enough that I can see where any high spots might be, and then I go back to the Shinto rasp and back to the sander and kind of go back and forth. You'll see that I left the volute and the neck transition basically where they were before. I like to work on those a little bit more finely later, but I want to get the neck shaped first. I find that if you try to find the bumps when it's still super rough, it's hard to tell what's raised and what's just grain that it has been ripped up by your saw rasp. So I like to kind of bounce between the two so I can find it and then just feel with my hands. As I said, once I kind of got the neck shaped, then I went in and just refined around into the neck transition. This one, it was easy because I know that it was going in straight into the body, so I could kind of do most of that work ahead of time. If it's going in at the body where there's a little bit more geometry to have to work around, I'll usually wait until it's in the body and then refine it from there, either with the saw rasp and files, or maybe jump in with my angle grinder. Awesome. My good friend Jaden at Discount Dungeoneering, he does 3D printing for Dungeons and Dragons models, as well as like terrain and other like props and things like that. He's done some stuff for me in the past, and it's awesome. But he recently got a laser cutter, so he cut me out this design that I made. Basically, it's a kingdom on the hill, like from the song, the poem, with the opening verse from it. And I figured I would use this as my badge inside of my Raven cutout. So I just kind of shaved it down to the size that I needed, glued it in, made sure that it fit and that you could see it the way I wanted it to be seen through the sound hole, and then just clamped it up and let it sit there. It turned out really cool. I really like it. I think it's a nice subtle touch, and big shout out to Jaden for printing that for me. Thanks, man. Alright, and then once that had dried, I moved the clamps and went about gluing the top onto the body. Just smearing some glue around. Someone did comment on the fact that I didn't glue my two pieces of my top together before gluing them to the body. Yeah, you're right. I should probably do that. I never have, though, and it's never made an issue. I don't know if I just clamp things up in a way that they don't slide. You'll also see my incredibly sketchy clamping job on this. But yeah, it just hasn't been an issue. I think because I can't figure out a good way to clamp up my tops. I know there's lots of ways, but I haven't tried all of them to find the one that really works for me. So I just do it all at the same time. I figure one glue up, half the effort. Not half the effort, half the time. But it hasn't gone wrong for me yet, which is probably not a great reason to keep doing what I'm doing, but it works. So, yeah. So yeah, glue them up there. Make sure that I have nice squeeze out all the way down the center line so that I know there's good contact between the two. And then the sketchy glue up and clamping begins. So here's my issue. I have clamps, but the way my workbench is, I can only really get to one side at a time because it's up against a wall. So I clamp the one side really well, the way you're supposed to, and everything goes dandy. No problems. Everything's great. Use some nice squeeze hand clamps, everything like that. Now when I get to the other side, I just have to put really heavy crap on top of it. There's, a bench grinder, my drill, and just positioning it around so that there's good contact all the way around the outside. Yeah, why not? A bucket of screws. Screws that are now in an empty peanut butter pretzel container. Great storage devices and delicious. With the drill balanced on top. I think later on I put a fire extinguisher on to give me a little bit more weight on that corner. But yeah, it works. I don't love it. Oh, there's a bottle of antifreeze. I use that too. Like I said, it's a little sketchy, but it works. Now, carving in the reveal carve. Didn't want it to be too major, but did want to, show a little bit of the Wenge from the front. Again, using my Shinto saw rasp. Works really well. Love this tool. I'm just going nice and slow with it. And then after I got the bulk of it shaved away, I went in with just a sanding block, nice hard sanding block. Big thanks to Todd from Sweet Tea Guitars for giving me this tip on how to get nice nice even lines on your reveal carves. This is my first time ever doing one with a top and a back that are different colors. So doing this really helped kind of blend everything together. Now, with spelted maple, a lot of these spaces are really, really soft, and I was worried about them not being able to hold up, especially because back there's nothing behind the maple. It's just over top of the cavity. So I plugged up the hole with some tissue paper and proceeded to cover the whole sucker in super glue. Basically, the super glue will soak in and solidify everything, making it nice and solid, and acting as basically a sealant coat as well as a hardener. This worked really well. I would find probably a better solution later, just because the smell and the fumes was awful. My eyes were watering. I made the joke in the Crimson Guitars live stream channel later on that day that I could smell colors, but I was definitely lightheaded. I was doing this in a well ventilated area in my garage, even though it was super cold with the garage door open, and like I said, it worked really well, but it was definitely a little sketchy, and I was worried about my health, so I think I would probably find a better way to do this. I know that you can use cactus juice, however, that's a really time-intensive process, and really involved, and I just didn't feel like I understood it well enough to do it. So super glue, I understood. I knew super glue worked. And yeah, it worked really well. After this, I let it dry for about a day, and then I came back and I sanded it all down so that I could still put on an oil coat finish. But yeah, it worked. But yeah, it made me feel gross. So be careful if you decide to do it. Here I routed in my neck pocket. Pretty simple stuff. I still have the MDF extension on my router because I didn't bother to take it off. No reason other than that. It's not needed. I just didn't take it off because I didn't bother doing it. So yeah, Cade's lazy and super intelligent. Maybe the fumes were still getting to me. Here I radiused the footboard, did a 12.5-inch radius on this, and man does this take forever. I've really got to learn how to do this with a plane, just to make things go faster because, yeah, sanding in a radius takes about 1,000,000 years. If I didn't already shave my head, I'd be bald by the time I was done this. Here I installed my frets. I do it all by hand. I don't use a fret press. I prefer to do it by hand. Just because, I don't know, it lets me feel a little more involved, I guess. I tried using the neck support. It just didn't work. In hindsight, I should have done this before I carved out the back of the neck. But I thought I would try doing it this way for once, and it wasn't great. Especially now knowing that the neck is a little thin. This could have ended very disastrously. So yeah. In the future, definitely going to install my frets before I carve the neck. But hey, you learn every time, right? Here, my fret slot just wasn't quite deep enough, so just had to touch it up. That is an issue that I find with cutting my frets by hand. I obviously don't have a CNC machine, but I do find that sometimes, even though I have a guard on there, I just don't quite get deep enough. So, something to work on. Here I route in the cavity control in the back. Unfortunately, this did end up right behind the badge that Jaden made for me. So my cavity is cut off by about half, which made wiring a little bit touchy, but it was fine. I made it work. And the badge didn't suffer any major damage, so all good. I just totally did not account for that when I set in to do the routing. Just a big oversight on my part. And this is where we were at the end of that day. Alright, getting ready for level crown and polish. Cover all of your frets in Sharpie, just so you know kind of where your high spots and low spots are once you start actually using your leveling beam. My leveling beam has 320 grit sandpaper on it. Nothing too aggressive. It sounds worse than it is, for sure. But yeah, just going through. The end kept bunching up on me there. That's why I keep stopping and fiddling with it. But and check my frets with a fret rocker. Still got some rock there, so after this I went back in and did more leveling. But that second fret was giving me a hard time. I had to do quite a bit of work with it, but not too bad. Going through and crowning it with my crowning file. Again, from Crimson Guitars. Go through and crown each side, and then just give it a little bit of a round over on the edges. If there's one part of my building that needs the most work, it's definitely my fret work. Something that I know, and I need to work on it. I kind of have half a mind to just get a whole bunch of neck blanks and fretboard blanks and just make a bunch of necks, just to practice my fretting. I mean, I'll use them eventually, but I don't know. I don't know how to get better other than just practicing the crap out of it. So that might be an upcoming project, and I will not make a video about it, I promise, because nobody wants to see me fret 20 necks. Okay, after it's all said and done, go after it with some Crimson Fretboard Cleaner, just to make sure there's no gunk or anything left on the fretboard. This is where you can really see that Zero Cote pop, and yeah, I think it's just a little bit busy with those frets, not the frets, the fret markers. So I think if I ever work with Zero Cote on a fretboard again, I'll probably just leave it be and let it speak to itself. I think either having the frets and no fret markers, or having the fret markers and no frets would have been fine, but with both, it makes it a little bit busy and takes away from the beautiful graining that's in Zero Cote. And then after it's all done, I go at it with some Crimson Fretboard Restorative, just to oil it up and get it, nice and hydrated. And then I put way too much on and was buffing it forever. So here is the first of my major mess ups. So yeah, the part of Wenge that I left underneath my bridge was not wide enough, and when I went to drill in the pins for the bridge, I was wide, and all that was supporting it was the top. There was no Wenge underneath it, and that scared the snot out of me. So I ended up going in and drilling the hole wider, putting in a bigger piece of dowel, gluing that, and then going back in and drilling in the support or the hole for the bridge pin again, and that worked fine. So, but it was a mess up, and I was concerned about it. And again, I threw some stuff. I did throw stuff. I swore a lot though. Rallying in the pickups for this one, I went with a P90 in the neck and a humbucker in the bridge, both from Wilkinson. They make really good budget pickups, and I'm not very wealthy, so budget is right up my alley. And here's the second of my mess-ups. So in filing and marking out the spots for my neck, somehow, and I don't know how I didn't realize it, they are not centered. I am way farther on the bass side than I am on the treble side, meaning that my thickest string, my low E, is pretty much right on the edge of some of my fretboard, making it really easy to slide off the edge. And that is just a total lapse on my side. I don't know how I didn't pick that up, but I didn't. Yeah, there's no excuse. I just messed up. So for now, I'm going to leave it, but when I go and here in a little while put on some new strings, I'm going to re-nut the whole thing and just start from scratch. I have more blanks. It's not a big deal. Just a blow to my pride more than anything else. And as always, the customary brand. Installing the humbucker in the back. I didn't put in the video of me putting in most of the hardware. I figured you guys know how tuners go in. And yeah, the only thing that's interesting about this that I didn't really catch on film is that my one of my pots is a push-pull pot, allowing me to split the coils of the humbucker, as well as I have a flush mount jack rather than a regular one. I really like it. I think I'll probably use flush mount for most of my builds in the future. It was just a lot easier to install, and I think it looks really sharp. So. And just stringing it up. Little piece of advice for anybody that is using one of these bridge and tailpiece all-in-ones where it wraps underneath and over. This one's from Godo, but I've seen others from other companies. To avoid scratching up your guitar, if you bend like a 90-degree angle into the tip of the string, it comes out a lot easier and it won't drag against the guitar as much. It's a little tip that I figured out. This is my third time using this style of bridge. The first two times I scratched up the finish and I was very upset about it, but I fixed it on this one. And there we go, sound test. Thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you enjoyed the build. I'll be back with another one very, very soon.